I hate to start out the show this way. I really, really do. But I just can't help myself because college football playoff expansion talks continue. Yesterday, there was a meeting. I believe they some executives in and around college football met virtually yesterday to further explore the idea of expanding the college football playoff. Now, the idea that's been floated around, if you're in SEC circles, is 16 team format. Well, the Big Ten has pushed back and they want 24. And Tony Batiti, their commissioner, has remained steadfast that they want a 24 team playoff and they aren't willing to budge at all whatsoever. So, no decision was there was no decision that came out of yesterday. And that's not breaking news because you know that they've been having these meetings for it seems like the last 17 years and nothing has really come out of it other than rumors and speculation and all that sort of thing. Here's the truth of all of this. The SEC and the Big Ten determine the format, the future format of the college football playoff. That is a fact. All the other conferences signed off on that. So the ACC has backed the 2014 playoff. The Big 12 has backed the 2014 playoff. I'm sure the Group of Six conferences also support a 2014 playoff. But it really doesn't matter because if the SEC is not on board and the Big Ten and they're not aligned, then it just sounds like it's going to stay at 12 as of right now. The Big Ten, Tony Batiti, has been very staunch on this idea of a 2014 playoff and has not been willing to budge. The SEC, the partnership that they have with ESPN, that, by the way, the Big Ten doesn't have a TV rights deal with ESPN. Think about who airs the college football playoff. ESPN. Technically, they own the rights up to, I think it's 14 teams. So if there was a 16 team format, ESPN would have to purchase those extra games, which I'm sure they would just do. But that's why they're not willing to go to 24 teams. Because think about it. If they expanded this thing to 2014 playoff, but ESPN owns the right up to 14 teams, plus if they buy the extra 2 games to get it to 16, well, all those other games in a 2014 format would have, other networks. We're talking Fox, we're talking NBC, maybe even CBS. They could get in on this. I know CBS Sports doesn't have any post-game college football or, postseason college football, so they would be chomping at the bit to get something. But ultimately, there was no decision decided on what the future format is going to look like. Now, I just want you to know that we have a lot of people that are new around here. And for some of you that know me and you've listened to the show for a while, thank you, first of all. But you know that this idea of college football playoff expansion just really makes me sick to my stomach. And here's why. So when we had the 4-team era, I thought it was great. I love the 14 playoff. I was against going to 12, but if I'm being honest, the 12-team playoff has kind of grown on me, and I believe college football, most importantly, has molded to fit the 12-team college football playoff. And here's why I say that. If you think about pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal, really it was the same teams that dominated and were at the top of college football. If you were to have a 12-team playoff format in there, it just wouldn't make any sense because in that era, pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal, there weren't 12 teams in Tier 1 of college football capable of winning a national championship. Now that NIL and transfer portal has been introduced, the curve has been flattened a little bit. That's not to say that every team is a national championship contender because that's just not the truth. But the depth is not the same. Alabama is not able to store up on 4- and 5-star linebackers and be able to sit those guys a little while, and then they end up playing a couple years later. That's just not the case anymore. So those players that are not originally starters, they transfer, go to different schools. That's flattened the curve a lot. And we're seeing that replicated in the current landscape of college football. So college football as a whole has molded into this 12-team college football playoff. Now, I am against expanding the playoff anymore. In my perfect world, I want it to stay at 12. I don't want 16. I don't want 24. And here's why. The prism of which I view college football, my kind of lens through which I view this great sport that we get to talk about, I'm a regular season guy. That's what I believe separates college football from every other sport on planet Earth. And that includes other collegiate sports. I'm a big college basketball fan too, but college football regular season versus the college basketball regular season, it's apples and oranges. It's night and day. You can't compare them. The reason I say that, you get 12 guaranteed Saturdays in the fall in college football. And I want as much urgency. I want maximum, urgency. I want all of that. And we get that in 12 Saturdays. If you expand this college football playoff to 24 teams, you water down a lot of that urgency. It's not the same. It's not the same for, your 1-loss, 2-loss teams. I want every Saturday to matter. And if you expand this playoff, that's just simply not the case. That is not the case. I don't want college football to be like every other sport. It's one of one to me. That's why I have a show dedicated to talking about college football year round. I don't want it to be like the NFL. I don't want it to be like the NBA. I don't want it to be like the MLB. I don't want it to be like anything else. College football is one of one to me. And that's why, because I view the lens of the sport through the regular season, I just think I view it as a cherry on top that we get a playoff and that we get to crown a national champion. But because that regular season is so important and each and every Saturday matters so much, that's what separates the sport from anything else that we get. So expanding this thing further, you would make college football like everything else. And it's not as special anymore. So Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, again, I don't know Tony personally. He may be a great person for all I know. But the things that he's saying in regarding to expanding the college football playoff, I just simply can't get behind. Big Ten Media Days were a couple weeks ago in Chicago. He was asked about expanding the playoff. He was asked about the idea of the 2014. The truth of the matter is, people that are listening to this show right now, you're like me. I'm a fan of college football. I want the best of college football. And the truth of the matter is, college football as a whole may not be its healthiest if you're maximizing every lane of revenue that you possibly can. The people that are in charge of making decisions in college football right now, a lot of them don't have your and I's best interest at heart. Their interest comes in the form of generating revenue and lining their pockets, making their pockets a little bit deeper. And that may come at the expense of the regular season. So Tony Petitti is talking about this idea of the 2014 playoff at Media Days in Chicago. And he mentions the coaches being in favor of the 2014 playoff. He mentions the athletic directors being in favor of the 2014 playoff, which of course they would, because there's this illusion that if you are able to make the 2014 playoff, you're in that top 24, you made the playoff, so your job should be secure, right? I think that is an illusion. I think that's a lie, but it looks good on a resume, making the college football playoff, sure. No wonder that coaches want it. How many coaches do we see get fired last year for not meeting expectations? Of course they're going to be in favor of it. More spots guarantees more access, guarantees job security, or at least so they think. But notice how Tony Petitti didn't mention the fans. Well, what do the fans want? What does the general public want? The people that are watching the games on Saturdays, responsible for the high TV ratings, which in part turns to revenue for the sport. No mention of the fans, and you're not going to hear fans mentioned, because it appears, and this is what I believe, that they don't really care what we want regarding the playoff, or at least Tony Petitti doesn't. At least some of these guys, the college football playoff, whoever's in charge of expanding this thing, they don't care about us. They don't have our best interests, the fans' best interests in mind. That's just not a thing. So, oh my gosh, I actually laughed when I heard this because I listened to what Tony Petitti had to say. Tony Petitti has an MLB background. And I kid you not, he compared college football to the MLB. MLB's great, but guess what? The MLB is a sport built around the postseason because they play 162 games in the regular season. So all the emphasis on the MLB is placed on the postseason. That's not the same with college football. I just laid out to you the regular season, the urgency, 12 guaranteed Saturdays. There are only 12 guaranteed Saturdays in the fall. There aren't 162 games, nor do I want 162 games. I kid you not, Tony Petitti compared the MLB to college football. That just shows me how out of touch that he is when it comes to this discussion. Truly, you shouldn't be comparing college football to the MLB. They're not the same, man. The regular seasons couldn't be more on the opposite end of the spectrum. So don't be throwing around your MLB background when it comes to making college football decisions. There are some people, truthfully, who have their hands on the wheel that just shouldn't. And I think a lot of you are starting to see that. So that's how I started the show, because I just couldn't help myself. I saw these headlines yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that we are still talking about expanding the college football playoff. And I guarantee I could run a poll right now. I could put one out on my Twitter. I could put one out on my YouTube channel and ask, do you prefer a 24-team college football playoff? Yes or no? Yes or no? Simple yes or no. Most of you would say no. But that, unfortunately, is not taken into consideration when it comes to these decisions that are being made.